Most people own at least one hammer, but walk through the hammer section at Harbor Freight and you'll quickly discover there are a whole lot more choices than the basic claw hammer most of us grew up using. You'll find framing hammers, ball peen hammers, rubber mallets, dead blows, brass hammers, drilling hammers, cross peen hammers, tack hammers, and even hammers made specifically for cleaning up welds. The trouble is, many of them look similar enough that it isn't always obvious why you would choose one over another. So today, we're looking at 12 different types of hammers, what each one is designed to do, and why using the right hammer can make a job easier while helping you avoid damaging the material you're working on. Let's begin with the hammer almost everybody recognizes. The first one is the standard claw hammer. The Harbor Freight example is a Pittsburgh 16-ounce fiberglass claw hammer. This is the basic general purpose hammer most homeowners should already own. The smooth face is used for driving ordinary nails, while the curved claw on the back is designed primarily for pulling them back out. The curved shape gives you leverage as you roll the hammer backwards to remove a nail. This particular version has a fiberglass handle that helps absorb some of the impact, and it won't splinter like a damaged wooden handle can. And this also includes a non-slip rubber grip. A 16-ounce claw hammer is light enough for household jobs such as hanging pictures, repairing a fence, assembling small projects, or driving ordinary finishing common nails. The biggest mistake people make with a claw hammer is treating it like a demolition tool. The claw can pull nails and handle light prying, but it's not intended to replace a pry bar. Pulling sideways or twisting aggressively can bend or damage the claw. Next is the framing hammer. Our example is the Pittsburgh Pro 22-ounce solid steel framing hammer. At first glance, it may look like a larger claw hammer, but there are some important differences. A framing hammer is heavier, usually has a longer handle, and is designed to drive large framing nails with fewer blows. This model has a waffle pattern face. That textured face helps grip the nail head and reduces the chance that the hammer will glance off during a strike. It also has a straighter rip claw instead of the more curved claw found on a household hammer. This rip claw is useful for pulling nails, separating boards, and handling lighter demolition work. Because this hammer is made from a solid piece of steel, there is no traditional head-to-handle joint to come loose. The downside is the steel framing hammer is heavier, and its milled face can leave a waffle-shaped mark in finished wood. That is why this is excellent for framing walls, sheds, decks, and other rough construction, but it would not be my first choice for delicate trim work. The number one mistake here is using the waffle face on a finished surface and then wondering where all those little dents came from. Our third hammer is the ball peen hammer. This is the Pittsburgh 24-ounce ball peen hammer. Instead of a claw, it has a flat striking face on one end and a rounded ball-shaped face on the other. This is primarily a metalworking and mechanics hammer. The flat face can be used for striking punches and chisels, while the rounded end can be used for shaping metal, rounding the ends of rivets, and working material without creating the sharp marks that a narrow edge might leave. Ball peen hammers also commonly found in automotive shops and machine shops. The Harbor Freight description lists striking, punching, riveting, shaping, and straightening unhardened metal among its intended jobs. The important words there are unhardened metal. You should not casually strike one hardened steel tool with another unless the tools are specifically designed for that use. Damaged or mushroom striking surfaces can chip and send pieces of metal flying. Safety glasses are cheap, eye surgery isn't. Number 4 is the rubber mallet. Our example is the Pittsburgh 1-pound fiberglass handle rubber mallet. A rubber mallet lets you apply force without leaving the kind of dents and marks a steel hammer can create. This particular mallet has a black and white head intended to help prevent marking. Typical uses include positioning blocks, setting pavers, assembling furniture, adjusting flooring, fitting parts together, and tapping material into place without damaging the surface. A rubber mallet is also useful when working with wood joints because you can persuade the pieces together without beating up the finished wood. But a rubber mallet is not a replacement for every hammer. Rubber absorbs part of the strike, so it's not as effective when you need concentrated force to drive a nail or punch, or a chisel. The common mistake is using it on something sharp. Sharp edges can cut or tear the rubber head surprisingly quickly. Number 5 may be one of the most useful, inexpensive specialty hammers in the group. This is the Pittsburgh 4-in-1 Quick Change Multi-Head Hammer. This includes interchangeable faces with different levels of hardness. The white face is soft, the red is medium, the green is hard, and there's also a steel face for ordinary striking jobs. That allows you to match the striking surface to the material you're working on. Softer plastic faces can be used when you need to avoid scratches, dents, or sparks. The harder faces transfer more force when the extra persuasion is required. This can be useful for assembling equipment, fitting bearings or bushings, adjusting machinery, working around finished surfaces, or handling projects made from different materials. It is not intended to replace a heavy dead blow or sledgehammer, but for light shop and assembly work, having several face options in one hammer is pretty handy. The biggest mistake I see is simply grabbing whichever face is already installed instead of choosing the correct hardness for the job. Number 6 is Icon's 32-ounce soft-face dead blow hammer. A dead blow hammer is different because its head is filled with loose shot. When the hammer strikes, that shot continues moving forward inside the head. This helps transfer force into the workpiece while reducing the rebound. In plain English, the hammer is less likely to bounce back at you. The soft polyurethane exterior also helps protect the surface being struck and resist many chemicals commonly found around the shop. This makes a dead blow hammer especially useful for chassis and suspension work, fitting parts, moving stubborn assemblies, and working around machinery where a regular steel hammer might cause damage. It's not magic though. A soft-faced dead blow hammer can still damage delicate parts when swung hard enough, and striking sharp metal edges can cut the polyurethane covering. The biggest mistake I see using a dead blow hammer, as though it is indestructible, once the outer shell splits and the shot begins coming out, its useful days are numbered. Number 7 is the Pittsburgh Pro 2-pound brass hammer. A brass hammer is softer than most of the steel parts it is commonly used to strike. That means the brass is more likely to deform before it damages the harder steel workpiece. This makes it useful around machinery, automotive parts, pins, shafts, and other components where a regular steel hammer might leave marks. Brass also creates less risk of sparking than an ordinary steel hammer, although that does not mean every brass tool is automatically certified every hazardous environment. This model has a solid brass head and a hickory handle. You may notice the face of a well-used brass hammer becoming dented or mushroomed. In many cases, that is the hammer sacrificing itself instead of damaging the part. That is what it's there to do. The mistake is assuming that non-marring means it's incapable of causing damage. 2 pounds of brass can still do plenty of harm if it's used carelessly. Number 8 is the Doyle 3-pound steel drilling hammer. Despite the name, this is not used to power a drill. A drilling hammer is essentially a compact, short-handled sledgehammer. It is designed to deliver a heavy blow without requiring the long swing and extra space needed for a full-size sledge. This makes it useful for striking cold chisels, masonry chisels, punches, and hardened nails. The Doyle version has 2 smooth striking faces, a fiberglass handle, and an over-molded grip designed to reduce vibration and provide better control. This is the kind of hammer you might use when breaking masonry, driving a heavy stake, or striking a chisel in an area where a long-handled hammer would be awkward. The mistake is holding the chisel too close to the striking end. A drilling hammer carries considerably more force than an ordinary household hammer. Use a chisel holder when practical, wear eye protection, and keep your other hand out of the impact zone. Number 9 is the Doyle 4-pound steel cross peen hammer. One hand has a conventional flat surface, the other has a narrow wedge-shaped face positioning across or perpendicular to the handle. That narrow cross peen concentrates the force into a smaller area. It can be used to stretch and shape metal in a particular direction, begin bends, work in narrow spaces, or perform blacksmithing and fabrication tasks. This 4-pound Doyle model is also heavy enough for certain stonework and demolition jobs. The flat base delivers the broader blow, while the cross peen lets you focus that energy along a narrow line. This is not a hammer most homeowners will ever use every week, but when the job calls for shaping thick metal, it does something an ordinary claw hammer simply can't do. The mistake is treating the peen like a cutting tool, as it shapes and concentrates force, but is not a substitute for a proper chisel. Number 10 is the Pittsburgh 7-ounce Tack Hammer. This small hammer is intended for driving tacks and brads. That makes it useful for upholstery, craft work, small trim pieces, and other jobs where a full-size hammer feels clumsy. The Harbor Freight version includes a built-in nail setter to help position those tiny fasteners. The lighter head provides more control and reduces the chance for burying a small tack too deeply or damaging the surrounding material. This is a good example of why bigger is not always better. Could you drive a tack with a framing hammer? Probably, but you could also eat soup with a garden shovel. Having the right size tool makes the job considerably easier. The biggest mistake is taking a huge swing. This is a precision hammer, not a miniature demolition tool. Number 11 is the Berger Welding and Chipping Hammer. This one is designed specifically to remove slag and splatter after welding. It has a hardened steel head with a pointed end and one side's beveled edge on the other. The pointed end helps break material loose in the tight areas, while the wider edge helps chip and clean along the weld. Its spring-style handle helps dampen vibration when striking metal and also gives the familiar appearance most people associate with a welding hammer. This tool is especially associated with stick welding and flux core welding, where slag may remain over the weld and must be removed before the weld can be properly inspected or another pass is added. This hammer is for cleanup, not for beating a bad weld in submission. And because slag and metal fragments can fly up in unpredictable directions, eye protection is essential. Finally, we have the big boy in the group. This is the Pittsburgh 12-pound fiberglass sledgehammer. A sledgehammer combines a heavy steel head with a long handle so the user can generate considerably more striking force. This model is intended for jobs such as breaking concrete and brick and masonry, along with other heavy demolition work. The long handle generates leverage and striking speed, while the 12-pound head supplies the mass. But that power comes with a price. A 12-pound sledge requires room, balance, control, and a fair amount of energy from the person using it. For driving smaller stakes or working in a confined area, a lighter sledge or drilling hammer may actually be the safer and more effective choice. The biggest mistake with a sledgehammer is thinking that the heaviest one available is automatically the best one for your job. A hammer you control is much more useful than one that controls you. So those are 12 different hammers, mallets, each designed to deliver force in a slightly different way. The claw hammer handles ordinary household nails. The framing hammer drives larger nails and helps with rough construction. The ball peen shapes metal. The rubber mallet protects finished surfaces. The multi-head hammer gives you different levels of hardness. The dead blow reduces rebound. The brass hammer protects harder steel parts. The drilling hammer delivers heavy blows in tight spaces. The cross peen concentrates force for shaping. The tack hammer handles small precision work. The chipping hammer cleans welds. And the sledgehammer brings the muscle for serious demolition. You certainly do not need to own every hammer we covered, but understanding the differences can help you choose the right one when a particular project comes along. Let me know in the comments which of these you already own, which one you use the most, and whether there is another unusual hammer you would like to see included in a follow-up video. Thanks for watching 63 and Counting Toolbox. Y'all take care